I've used several dust collectors and I've made a bunch of videos on modifying the old Central Electric dust collector from Harbor Freight. And Harbor Freight has been really up in their game. They went around and looked at all the dust collectors out on the market, I believe, and seen what they can improve on, and they tried to put in just about every improvement that you could think of on this dust collector. So first, I'm just going to go over and show you all the little things that I can find that is an upgrade over their previous models. So I'm going to show you how good this thing works, but then at the end, I'm going to show you the unboxing and how to put it together. I mean, obviously right off the bat, this one has the big 2-micron filter, and then it also has this little thing that spins around, and what it does is it's a beater and it beats the pleats. So if the filter was to start getting clogged with dust, all you have to do is just come over here, give that a couple of little turns, and that's going to knock all the dust off the filter and let it go down and catch inside the bag. Now at first glance you might think that this is about the same as the old central piece. However, this one here, well, we've got the poles that are not just these little small poles that are come up. So this is definitely a lot more secure, looks a lot nicer, but the intake here is larger. We got a 6-inch hose coming into the intake. That 6-inch hose was going to be needed because I'm going to show you in a second, they've really upgraded their impeller, and they have so much airflow going into this that they had to get a bigger hose assembly. I might be wrong, but I believe this is at a little bit larger of an angle than what the previous ones were, but definitely this right here, if you look, a lot of the videos out there that are wanting to upgrade the dust collection is putting a thine baffle on one of these, and this little plate right here is basically acting like a modified thine baffle that's built right in. So I think the only way you're going to get anything better than this is actually getting a full-blown cyclone system on this, which, you know, that is going to triple the price of the closest unit that has a cyclone. But this right here, I think, is going to greatly increase the efficiency of keeping all the chips down in the bag and keeping them away from the filter. So talking about the bag, one of the biggest things I hated with the old system is the bag went around and you had that clamp and you're trying to hold the bag up, and it's just a pain in the butt to put the bag on here. Also, because that bag was a little bit bigger than what the tank is, when you would put the clamp on it, you would always, it seemed like, get these little spots around it where you would have the dust coming up where it would leak in the little pleats of the bag. Well, they have came up with a new system here, and so it's basically, you have this ring right here that goes around the bag, and then that ring just pushes up and it's a pressure fit inside of here, which makes replacing the bag, which is the biggest thing I hate about this type of system, is the bags. But with this ring system here, it definitely makes this 10 times easier to replace that bag. I was considering that was the one fault that I was considering with this machine, is wanting to figure out a way that I could put a hard barrel up underneath here. But now that I've used it a little bit with this ring, that ring may be good enough that I don't have to do that modification. Now, none of the other dust collectors I know of has a hard barrel, but if you would prefer a hard barrel, put it in the description and let me know what you think. I'm still kind of on the fence. I like the hard barrel that I have with my other system, but this one here is making me reconsider that, and I believe I might just stick with the bag on this one. Another upgrade they did is with this switch box here. It's got a real nice little switch box, big on and off switch is definitely really nice with that. Now this doesn't really mean anything, but it just goes to show you what they're doing. Is there's this little bar that's between this little bracket that the motor's set on. Now I've put together several of these, and this little bracket comes up, and then it's always kind of bent in or out, and you have to push it in when you're assembling it, and once it's assembled, it's fine. But they've welded a little tab in here that kept these properly spaced so that you didn't have to you kind of tweak it any when you was putting it together. And that's something simple and minor, but that's just going to show that they are looking for any little thing that they can do to improve this machine and add it into the design. And I saved this for last because this is the heart of the machine. And really, you can go online and look at all the pictures of the machines that cost twice as much, and you'll see they just a stock one of the old square ventilation housings that they had for 30 years. They have a square exhaust port. And now when I was testing the old system, I was adding my filter on. I took off the adapter going from the square to the round, and I forget I had like about a 30% increase in my airflow because they weren't designed for these round tubings. Now this has a full 6-inch intake and a 6-inch exhaust coming in. So if you wanted to run this for like a whole shop system, a small shop, you can take the screw off and pipe this right into a 6-inch main trunk, and it definitely has the flow to handle a 6-inch. Now they have it necked down to 2 4-inches, and they got this the little cap. This is probably the only thing that I would say on here that's a little, not the best quality. It's just a little small cap, but they probably did that on purpose because they have these little baffles in here to try to keep any kind of debris since it goes through the impeller. And this way, being thin like it is, it'll bend and kind of go over the screws. It would have been nice if they had some sort of flush mount screws. Now also be aware that this is the one downfall with these type of systems, which is what I did not like, because everything goes through the impeller. So they have this little guide right here. Now if you get a little piece of plastic or trash or even some little sticks that come off your saw, they can get lodged across here. And if you're doing like planing and stuff that has your big chips, it can start kind of getting clogged up around here. So if you do notice a little, you can definitely tell the difference in the sound, or you can see that it's starting to drop off a little bit. Check and make sure that you don't have something blocking this, because it doesn't take but just a little bit blockage here and it'll greatly reduce your suction. But other than that, there is nothing on this machine that I have found that really could be improved on at all. I went ahead and put this bucket on the end of the pipe here. This bucket is about 0.7 cubic foot, and then my meter is set at feet per minute. So that means that with just the one opening, I was getting about 650 cubic feet a minute, and then with both of them open, I'm getting 450 cubic feet a minute. So I checked the things coming straight out of the 6-inch, and that's giving me 1100 or a little over 1100, which is fully what it's rated at. So this does definitely put out 1100 cubic foot, which is why I said this would work great for a whole. Now there's two reasons for dust collector. One is you don't want dust all over your floor and all over your counters and all that kind of stuff. When I started out and I wasn't using dust collection, I'd be out here working all day and I'd be up past my ankles in sawdust, on a busy day. But worse than a bunch of sawdust on the floor is the little particulate floating around in the air, because you start getting all this little fine sawdust in the air, and that's going to get into your lungs and going to cause you a problem over the years. Well, on that little stool right there is it's a particulate meter, which this particular one, I'll even put a link in the description if I can find it for this one. It's actually connected to the Wi-Fi out here in the shop, and if my air quality drops, it'll text me a notification. And I've got this thing, you see the bar is in the green. It was already about 10 or 12 before I started, just because I've been out here in the shop all day already working. But this thing is sitting right next to this dust collector. And two things. One, when you're out here, normally cutting with a saw and stuff, for me, by myself, one person, I have to cut all day long before I'll fill up a barrel full of sawdust in a day. And, I'm sucking this out of the barrel, so I'm going to put, 8 hours worth of sawdust through this machine in, just 4 or 5 minutes. So that in itself, leads it to not be as efficient because you're just putting way more through it all at once. But then another thing about this particular sawdust is that the majority of this all came off of my drum sander. Now my drum sander puts out this almost like baby powder fine dust, and this is the hardest for a dust collector to filter out. And with this machine, with this meter sitting right here next to the machine running, and now I've got like 15 gallons of sawdust in the bottom of that barrel. And this machine, this new dust collector will hold 30, 35 gallons. So I'm basically going to fill this bag halfway up in just a couple of minutes with just a fine baby powder sawdust. And as you see, it is filtering almost 100% out. I think the highest I seen was about 2 parts per million more than what it was, maybe 3, from the beginning of when I started. Now this is that just that real fine sawdust. You don't see any wood chips in here. This is just all dust, which also this is what made it through the cyclone and the filter caught. This would not have happened if it had been hooked to a tool. And, the only reason this much got through is because I was dumping it all in just a minute. But this shows you how efficient that filter actually is. All right, real quick, we're going to do the assembly of the machine. It's super simple to put together. You have the motor and impeller assembly that's already mounted to the base. Now you see how I'm doing it here. This is not how to do it. You need to have it flipped around so that the big exhaust pipe is to the end of the little cart. I did put this on backwards and had to take it off and redo it the other way. Once you get the motor attached, you're going to want to put these 3 little uprights that hold the actual unit in place, but you don't want to tighten these down. You just go ahead and put them in hand tight, and that way there's a little bit of movement. Now this part here, it's just a matter of trying to get the little bolts in the hole there. I went ahead and started the 1 bolt on all 3 of these, and then went back and put the 2nd bolt in, and then went around and tightened them up. It would be easier if you had 2 people, but I'm always out here in the shop by myself. I don't have 2 people, so it can be done fairly easy with 1 person. Just make sure that the exhaust is pointed towards the motor, and it'll be fine. But while we're sitting here looking at this, if you just look at this thing, the finish on this, the powder coating, years gone by, Harbor Freight at one point wasn't known necessarily for fit and finish. They had good parts that worked, but they weren't always the most refined. However, now, I don't know if they're trying to overcompensate, but the finish on this thing is just flawless. The powder coating on the red, even the little cart looks very similar to the carts. I've done put 3 or 4 of the Chicago Electric dust collectors together, and the finish on this cart is completely different. They have really are trying to make this thing a high end, and there's no tools on the market that have a better finish on them. So I'm really, really impressed with this unit. Now we just need to take this 6-inch piece of flex hose and connect it from the what I'm calling the baffle area to the actual motor. It's attached with these 2 clamps, real quick and simple. All right, so now we're just going to hook this 6-inch to 2 4-inch Y. Now this has the little screen there that keeps the bigger particles from going through and getting in the impeller. So I've thought about going ahead and designing up in 3D printing a 6-inch to 4-inch that has the little screen built in it, so it would get rid of the screw heads. That way your 4-inch flex tubing can just connect right on there, and then you wouldn't have to have the cap on the other one. So if anybody's interested in getting that file, put a comment below and I'll post it up on Printable Shop System. Now this was the part that I didn't see in the directions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a washer on the longer end that has the threads, and I'm going to put that through the top. And I'm going to push it up, and then I'm going to bring the smaller end back through the bottom here, and then it has the nylon locking nut. I'm going to put that nut on and screw it till it's just barely flush. Once I get that in there, I'm going to go back to the top. I'm going to put a washer on the top, put my regular nut, screw that down, make sure it's not too tight because, I mean, we want this to be able to turn. And then I'm going to put the handle on it and put the other nut on top of the handle. Then I'm going to put my lock washer on and then the acorn nut. And that seemed to be the best option. If anybody finds it in their directions is different, let me know. But that's what I found to seem to work. So this is about the end of the video. All we got left to do is just throw this filter on the top, and there's the band that goes around it. I like this band a lot better than the old style band that were metal. This is out of that new, I don't know, synthetic type of banding material. Works really good. But however, if you look at the video where I was doing the testing with the particulate meter, I realized afterwards that I had been taking this band off and just had the filter setting on it, and it made a airtight seal, so I wasn't getting any dust out around the filter even without the band on it. This goes to show you how well this thing has been put together. The bag with the ring to install the bag, you know, that's always been the one that I hated about these dust collectors. Almost every brand, I don't care if it's Laguna, Jet, you know, they all make the same style dust collector, but all of them have used the same design that they've had for decades now. And nobody is really, you know, wanting to come up and design something new, you know, something made for the round ductwork instead of the square ductwork. And, you know, by having those old style that were made for the square ductwork, you know, you lose a lot of efficiencies. This one, they say it's a 1.5 horse, but it is actually more efficient, and it seems to be working better than several of the 2 horsepower ones that I've tested. So, you know, you just don't always have to have the more horsepower if you have a better design. And I think that Harbor Freight has really knocked this one out of the park. Kind of a little disappointed that, you know, my old videos of where I was modifying their other dust collector to make them better is really kind of outdated now, because with this new unit, I mean, the price, if you pulled the price tags off of all these, you know, 1.5 to 2.5 horsepower dust collectors and put them side by side, this is the one I would pick. And then when you put the price tag on them and realize that this one is half as much as some of those other ones, I mean, it's a no-brainer. You're getting a better unit at a better price. You know, as far as a small shop dust collection, this is going to be all you need. The only thing that could actually be better is if you got a big cyclone, but those cyclones are definitely way more expensive and, you know, really is unnecessary for a small shop. So I hope everybody enjoyed the video. If you have any comments, leave them down below. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. And until then, I hope everybody has a wonderful day creating some sawdust. Best for me.